When icy art dealer Kellen Ward hires fiery artist Micah Rowe to pose as his wedding date, neither expects a spark. But one fake weekend leads to real love, if they can face the truth. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun shone through the tall windows of Kellen Ward's penthouse apartment. Everything was in its place: pristine white furniture, carefully arranged art pieces, and not a speck of dust anywhere. Just like his life, Kellen's home was a masterpiece of control. Kellen stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, coffee cup in hand, looking out at the city below. At 30 years old, he had everything most people spent their lives chasing: money, success, respect in the art world. Yet something was missing. Not that he would ever admit it. The buzzing of his phone interrupted his thoughts. His assistant Vivian was calling. "Good morning, Mr. Ward," she said when he answered. "Your mail has arrived. There's something you might want to see right away." "Bring it up," Kellen said simply, ending the call. Minutes later, Vivian entered with a silver tray of mail. On top was a cream-colored envelope with gold trim. "It's from Cassandra," Vivian said, her voice careful. Kellen's jaw tightened. Cassandra Brooks, his ex-fiancée, the woman who had left him for Marcus Devereaux, his biggest rival in the art world. He took the envelope and dismissed Vivian with a nod. Once alone, he stared at the envelope for a long moment before finally opening it. Inside was a wedding invitation, ornate and expensive. Cassandra Brooks and Marcus Devereaux requested his presence at their wedding, 6 weeks from now. At the bottom, handwritten in Cassandra's flowing script, "Pum 1 optional," with a small smiley face. Kellen felt his blood run cold, then hot. She knew he was alone. She knew he hadn't dated anyone seriously since she'd left. This wasn't just an invitation. It was a power move, a way to show him she had won. He grabbed his phone and dialed his assistant. "RSVP, yes," he said sharply. "2 people." "2?" Vivian sounded surprised. "Yes, I'm bringing someone." "May I ask who?" Kellen stared at the invitation. "I'll let you know." The truth was he had no idea. His social circle consisted of business associates and superficial friends. He hadn't let anyone close since Cassandra, but there was no way he was showing up alone to watch her marry Marcus. 3 days later, Kellen sat in a downtown cafe, looking through portfolio images on his laptop. He'd come here to escape the stuffy atmosphere of his gallery, needing a change of scenery. Finding a date for the wedding was still weighing on his mind. "That'll be $7, the barista said to the man in front of him. $7 for a coffee? The man replied loudly. He wore an expensive suit and was talking on his Bluetooth earpiece. "That's highway robbery. Do you know who I am? I run Thorndale Investments." "Sir, that's our price if you don't want it. Do you know how much money I manage? I could buy this entire block." From a table nearby, a woman's voice cut through. "And yet you can't afford a $7 coffee. Must be a terrible investment manager." The cafe went quiet. Kellen looked up to see who had spoken. She sat 2 tables away. A young black woman with curly hair pulled into a messy bun. She wore paint-splattered jeans and a bright yellow sweater. She didn't even look up from her sketchbook as she spoke. The businessman turned red. "Excuse me?" She finally looked up, her dark eyes unimpressed. "You heard me. Also, nobody cares who you are. Either buy the coffee or don't, but stop holding up the line with your ego trip." Several customers snickered. The businessman sputtered, threw a $10 bill on the counter and stormed out without his change or coffee. "Sorry about that," the woman said to the barista. "Some people think their wallets make them special." Kellen found himself staring. There was something magnetic about her confidence, the way she spoke without caring what anyone thought. It was refreshing, real. When she got up to leave 20 minutes later, Kellen made a split-second decision. He closed his laptop and followed her outside. "Excuse me," he called. She turned, eyebrow raised. "Yes?" Up close, she was even more striking. Her eyes were warm brown, intelligent, and a little suspicious. "I was in the cafe," Kellen said. "I saw what happened with that businessman." "And? Are you his lawyer or something?" She folded her arms. "No, I thought it was impressive. Not many people would speak up like that." She shrugged. Not many people should have to pay $7 for coffee either, but here we are. Kellen found himself smiling, a real smile, not the practiced one he used at gallery events. "I'm Kellen Ward," he said, extending his hand. She hesitated before shaking it. "Micah Rowe. Can I buy you another coffee, Micah? Or lunch, perhaps?" Micah studied him, taking in his tailored suit and expensive watch. "Why?" The question caught him off guard. Most people in his world didn't ask why when offered free things. "Because I'd like to talk to you." he said honestly. About? A proposition. She laughed, the sound bright and genuine. Wow, that's either the start of a business deal or a really bad pickup line. Business, Kellen clarified quickly, though I'm not doing a very good job explaining it. Micah checked her watch. I have an hour before I need to be at work. There's a sandwich shop around the corner that doesn't charge like they're feeding royalty. As they walked, Kellen felt oddly nervous. He was used to being in control, to people saying yes to whatever he wanted. Micah clearly played by different rules. At the sandwich shop, they found a quiet corner table. Micah ordered a BLT and iced tea. Kellen got the same, not even looking at the menu. So, Mr. Ward, what's this proposition? Micah asked after they'd received their food. Just Kellen, please. He took a breath. This is going to sound strange, but I need a date for a wedding. Micah's eyebrows shot up. You're right. That is strange. It's my ex-fiancée's wedding. She's marrying someone I don't particularly like, and you want to make her jealous. That's a bit high school, isn't it? Kellen shook his head. Not jealous. I just don't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me alone. So, hire an escort, Micah said bluntly. I don't want someone who looks like they're hired. I want someone real, someone who would surprise them. He looked at her meaningfully. Micah set down her sandwich. Are you asking me to pretend to be your date? Yes, for one weekend. The wedding is at a country estate about 2 hours upstate. It's a 3-day event. Welcome dinner, Friday, wedding Saturday, brunch Sunday. And why would I agree to this? I'd compensate you, of course. $5,000. Micah choked on her iced tea. $5,000 for one weekend? Kellen nodded. Why me? You don't know anything about me. I know you're not afraid to speak your mind. You don't seem impressed by money or status. That's exactly what I need. Micah leaned back in her chair, studying him. What do you do, Kellen? I own an art gallery. Ward Gallery on 5th Avenue. Her eyes widened slightly. Wait, that Ward, the one that hosted the Modern Perspectives exhibit last month. You know it. I'm an artist. Well, trying to be. I teach preschool during the day, paint at night. She shook her head in disbelief. This is surreal. You could ask anyone to this wedding. I'm asking you. Micah was quiet for a long moment. I need to pay my rent, she finally said, and I need new supplies, but I'm not a prop and I won't fake affection. I wouldn't ask you to, just be yourself. When is this wedding? 3 weekends from now. She pulled out her phone and checked her calendar. I'd need Friday off work. I can make it worth your while. Micah sighed, then looked him straight in the eye. 7,000, and you donate 5 paintings from your gallery to the preschool where I work. The kids need art in their lives. It was Kellen's turn to be surprised, not by the counteroffer, but by the request for the children. Deal, he said without hesitation. Just like that? Just like that. Micah stared at him, then slowly extended her hand. Fine. I'll be your +1, Mr. Art Dealer. But remember, no fake affection. As they shook hands, Kellen felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Anticipation. 2 weeks later, Micah stood in her small apartment, staring at her closet in frustration. Kellen had called to tell her about the dress code for the wedding weekend, black tie for the main event, smart casual for the welcome dinner, and brunch chic for Sunday, whatever that meant. I don't have anything remotely suitable, she told her roommate Jade, who sat cross-legged on Micah's bed. Remind me again why you agreed to this, Jade asked. $7,000 and art for the kids, Micah said, throwing another dress onto the reject pile. Plus I was curious. About what? The rich and famous lifestyle? Micah shook her head. About him. He seemed, I don't know, lonely. Lonely men are dangerous, me. It's not like that. It's strictly business. The doorbell rang, interrupting their conversation. Jade went to answer, while Micah continued sorting through her limited wardrobe. Micah? Jade called a minute later. You might want to come here. Micah walked into the living room to find a delivery man surrounded by large boxes. Delivery for Micah Rowe, he said, handing her a clipboard to sign. After the delivery man left, Micah opened the largest box. Inside was a stunning emerald green evening gown, simple but elegant. Oh my God, Jade whispered, pulling out a card attached to the dress. She read aloud, For the wedding, no pressure to wear it if it's not your style. There are options in the other boxes. K. The other boxes contained 2 more dresses, shoes in her size, and a small black clutch. How did he know my size? Micah wondered. That's both impressive and creepy, Jade said, examining one of the dresses. You have to admit, the man has taste. Micah ran her fingers over the green gown. It was beautiful, but the gesture troubled her. This feels like Pretty Woman. Except you're not a prostitute, and he's not Richard Gere. You know what I mean. The rich guy buying clothes for the poor girl. She sighed. I'll call him. Kellen answered on the second ring. Hello, Micah. The dresses arrived, she said, skipping pleasantries. Do you like them? They're beautiful, but I can't accept them. There was a pause. They're part of the arrangement, Kellen said. The wedding has a strict dress code. If you'd prefer to shop for yourself, I can send the money instead. That's not the point. This makes me feel like, she trailed off. Like what? Like I'm being bought. Not just my time, but me. Another pause, longer this time. That wasn't my intention, Kellen said, his voice softer. I just wanted to make things easier. You said you weren't a prop, and I respect that. If the dresses make you uncomfortable, don't wear them. Micah found herself believing him. No, it's fine, they're just clothes. Thank you for being thoughtful. You're welcome. I'll pick you up next Friday at noon. After they hung up, Jade raised an eyebrow. So I'm keeping the green one, Micah said. The others go back. The following Friday, Micah waited outside her apartment building with a small suitcase. She wore jeans, a simple blouse, and her favorite leather jacket. Her curls were loose around her shoulders. She'd decided to be comfortable for the drive. At exactly noon, a sleek black car pulled up. The driver got out and took her suitcase while Kellen emerged from the back seat. He looked different today, more relaxed in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Without the formal suit, he seemed younger, more approachable. Hi, he said, giving her a small smile. Hi yourself, she replied. Nice car. It's just for the weekend. I thought it would be more comfortable than my usual one. The driver opened the door for them. Inside, the car was spacious and luxurious. Ready? Kellen asked as they settled in. As I'll ever be, Micah said, trying to ignore the flutter of nerves in her stomach. As they pulled away from the curb, she wondered what exactly she had gotten herself into. The first hour of the drive was quiet. Kellen answered emails on his phone while Micah looked out the window, watching the city give way to suburbs and then countryside. Finally, she broke the silence. So, tell me about this ex of yours. Kellen looked up from his phone, surprised. What do you want to know? Everything I should know before meeting her. How long were you together? Why did you break up? Why is this wedding so important to you? He put his phone away. Her name is Cassandra Brooks. We were together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. She left me for Marcus Devereux. And who is he? My biggest competitor. We've been rivals since art school. Kellen's jaw tightened. He's flashier than I am, louder. He makes big splashes with controversial exhibits while I focus on finding real talent. And Cassandra preferred the flash? Apparently. His voice was bitter. She said I was too cold, too focused on work. Marcus made her feel special, passionate. At least that's what her goodbye letter said. Micah winced. A letter? Ouch! Left on my pillow while I was at a gallery opening. She'd already moved her things out. That's harsh. Kellen shrugged, but Micah could see the pain beneath his casual gesture. Is that why you're so closed off? She asked. His eyes snapped to hers. What makes you think I'm closed off? Just an observation. You have this wall, like you're keeping everyone at a distance. We barely know each other, Micah. Exactly my point. We're going to a wedding together, but all I know about you is that you own a gallery and got dumped via letter. Kellen looked out the window. What else do you want to know? Where did you grow up? Do you have siblings? What's your favorite color? Basic stuff. New York, no siblings, blue. He paused. What about you? Philadelphia. One older brother who lives in Chicago. Yellow, obviously, she said, gesturing to her bright yellow luggage tag. Why teaching? Kellen asked. If you're an artist, why not focus on that full time? Bills don't pay themselves. And I love the kids. They see the world differently. Everything is new and amazing. It keeps me from getting too cynical. She studied him. Why art dealing? Did you ever want to create art yourself? Something flashed in his eyes. I tried. I wasn't good enough. Says who? Everyone who mattered. The simple answer held volumes of hurt. Micah wanted to ask more, but the hardness in his expression made her change course. Tell me about the wedding. Who will be there? What should I know? Kellen seemed relieved by the subject change. About 200 people, mostly art world people, socialites, some of Cassandra's family. They've booked the entire Cedar Lake estate. And what's our story? How did we meet? At a gallery opening. Keep it simple, close to the truth. How long have we been together? 3 months. New enough that I wouldn't have mentioned you to anyone, but long enough to bring you to a wedding. Micah nodded. What about affection? You said I don't have to fake it. But won't people be suspicious if we're completely hands-off? Kellen looked uncomfortable. What do you suggest? Basic couple stuff. Standing close, maybe holding hands occasionally. Nothing major. That's fine, he said, though he didn't sound convinced. Have you not dated anyone since Cassandra? Micah asked gently. Not seriously. Why not? Kellen gave her a sharp look. Why are you single? Who says I am? Are you? Micah smiled. Yes, but I date. Nothing serious lately because I'm focused on my career. Both of them. They fell silent again, but it was more comfortable now, the ice broken a little. As they drove deeper into the countryside, Micah found herself studying Kellen's profile. He was handsome in a classic way, strong jaw, straight nose, dark hair cut short and neat. But it was his eyes that fascinated her, blue-gray and guarded, revealing little. What would it take, she wondered, to see behind that perfect mask? And why did she care? 2 hours later, they turned onto a private road lined with tall pine trees. A wooden sign read, Cedar Lake Estate. We're here, Kellen said, sitting up straighter and adjusting his collar. Micah could feel him tensing beside her. On impulse, she reached over and squeezed his hand. It's going to be fine, she said. Remember, I'm the one who told off a Wall Street guy over coffee. I can handle some snooty wedding guests. The corner of his mouth lifted in a reluctant smile. I'm counting on it. The car pulled up to a beautiful stone lodge surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens. Staff members rushed to open their doors and take their luggage. As they stepped out, Micah took a deep breath of fresh country air. She could do this. It was just a weekend, just a role to play. But as Kellen placed his hand lightly on the small of her back to guide her inside, she felt a strange flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with nerves. It was going to be an interesting weekend indeed. The lobby of Cedar Lake Estate was bustling with well-dressed guests, checking in for the wedding weekend. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and enormous floral arrangements filled the air with a sweet scent. Micah tried not to stare at the obvious display of wealth, but it was hard not to be impressed. Kellen Ward, he said to the receptionist, we should have a suite reserved. The young woman's eyes widened in recognition. Of course, Mr. Ward. Ms. Brooks mentioned you would be attending. We have you in the lakeside suite. As she handed over their key cards, a woman's voice called out from across the lobby. Kellen, you made it. Micah turned to see a tall, thin woman approaching. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than Micah's monthly rent, and her blonde hair was styled in perfect waves. She moved with the confidence of someone used to being the center of attention. Cassandra, Kellen said, his voice suddenly formal. So this was the ex-fiancée. Micah studied her as she air-kissed Kellen on both cheeks. Cassandra was beautiful in a polished magazine cover way. We weren't sure you'd come, Cassandra said, her eyes moving to Micah with open curiosity. I wouldn't miss it, Kellen replied, his face a careful mask. Cassandra, this is Micah Rowe. Micah, Cassandra Brooks, the bride-to-be. Cassandra extended a manicured hand. Lovely to meet you, Micah. I don't believe Kellen has mentioned you before. We've been keeping things private, Micah said, shaking her hand firmly. Cassandra's smile didn't reach her eyes. How refreshing. Kellen was always so private. Weren't you, darling? Before Kellen could respond, a man appeared at Cassandra's side, sliding an arm possessively around her waist. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with slicked-back dark hair and a smile that seemed practiced. Ward, you actually showed up, he said, his voice booming, and with company, no less. Marcus, Kellen said stiffly, congratulations. Thank you, thank you. Marcus looked Micah up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. And who is this lovely creature? Micah Rowe, she said before Kellen could introduce her again. I'm with Kellen. Lucky man, Marcus said with a wink. Much luckier than the last time I saw him. Cassandra nudged him. Marcus, be nice. It's our wedding weekend. Of course, my love. He kissed Cassandra's cheek theatrically. Just a little friendly rivalry. Micah felt Kellen tense beside her. Without thinking, she slipped her hand into his and squeezed gently. To her surprise, he squeezed back. We should get settled, Kellen said. It was a long drive. Of course, Cassandra said. The welcome dinner is at 7 in the Grand Hall. Don't be late. As they walked away, Micah heard Marcus laugh. I told you he'd bring someone, probably hired her. Micah felt her temper flare, but Kellen's hand tightened around hers, pulling her toward the elevators. Don't, he said quietly. It's not worth it. Once they were alone in the elevator, Micah let out a long breath. Wow, I see why you needed moral support. They're awful. Kellen released her hand, leaving it feeling strangely empty. That was just the beginning. The lakeside suite was stunning. A spacious sitting area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, a kitchenette, and 2 separate bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms. "This is bigger than my entire apartment," Micah said, walking to the windows to admire the view. Kellen set down his briefcase. "I'll take the room on the right. You can have the master." "Are you sure? This is your ex's wedding. You should at least get the better bed." A hint of a smile crossed his face. "I insist." Micah wandered into the master bedroom. It was beautiful, with a king-sized bed and a bathroom featuring a soaking tub big enough for 2. She set her suitcase on the luggage rack and unzipped it, pulling out the green dress for that evening. When she emerged later, Kellen was sitting on the couch looking at something on his tablet. He glanced up and froze. Micah had changed into a simple black dress for the welcome dinner. It was one of her own, not as fancy as the ones Kellen had sent, but elegant enough with her hair swept up and a pair of gold earrings Jade had lent her. "Is this okay for tonight?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious under his stare. Kellen cleared his throat. "You look beautiful." The simple compliment made her cheeks warm. "Thanks. You clean up pretty well yourself." He had changed into a charcoal grey suit that fit him perfectly. Without his usual stiff posture, he looked younger, almost approachable. "Ready to face the wolves?" he asked, offering his arm. Micah took it, feeling the solid strength beneath his jacket. "Lead the way." The grand hall was decorated with thousands of white flowers and twinkling lights. Round tables filled the space, each set with fine china and crystal glasses. A string quartet played softly in the corner. As they entered, heads turned. Micah felt the weight of curious stares and whispered comments. "Why is everyone looking at us?" she murmured. "Because they're surprised I actually brought someone," Kellen said, "and because you're the most interesting person in the room." Before she could respond, a waiter appeared with champagne flutes on a silver tray. Kellen took 2, handing one to Micah. "To surviving the weekend," he said quietly, clinking his glass against hers. "I'll drink to that." They moved through the crowd, Kellen introducing her to various people, gallery owners, artists, collectors. Most seemed surprised to meet her, their eyes darting between her and Kellen with poorly disguised curiosity. "So, how did you 2 meet?" asked a woman named Eleanor, who Kellen had introduced as a prominent collector. "At a gallery opening," Micah said, sticking to their agreed story. "Which gallery?" "Mine," Kellen interjected. "Micah is an artist." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "Really? What medium?" "Mixed media, mostly. I work with acrylics and found objects," Micah said truthfully. "How fascinating. Kellen has always had an eye for undiscovered talent." The comment carried a hint of condescension that made Micah bristle. "I'm hardly undiscovered. My work just isn't in the commercial market yet." Eleanor looked taken aback, and Kellen's mouth twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. "We should find our table," he said, guiding Micah away with a hand on her lower back. "Sorry," Micah whispered. "Was that too much?" "It was perfect," Kellen replied. And this time he did smile, a real one that reached his eyes. Their table was near the front of the room, close to where Cassandra and Marcus sat with their immediate family. Micah recognized it as a power play, putting Kellen on display where everyone could watch his reactions. Dinner was served, a fancy 5-course meal with tiny portions and names Micah couldn't pronounce. She ate carefully, conscious of the formal setting and the watchful eyes around them. Between courses, Marcus stood up to make a toast. He tapped his glass, and the room fell silent. "Friends, family, welcome to the beginning of our celebration," he said, his voice carrying. "Cassandra and I are so grateful to have you all here to witness our love." Cassandra beamed up at him, the picture of a happy bride. "I especially want to thank my good friend and rival, Kellen Ward, for joining us," Marcus continued, raising his glass in Kellen's direction. "It takes a big man to watch his ex-fiancée marry the better choice." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Micah felt her jaw drop at the rudeness of it. Beside her, Kellen's face remained impassive, but his knuckles were white around his glass. "To finding the right match," Marcus concluded with a smirk, "even if it takes a few tries." "What a jerk," Micah muttered as everyone drank. "I told you," Kellen said, his voice tight. After dinner, guests mingled and danced. Kellen was pulled into a conversation with some gallery owners, leaving Micah alone for a moment. She was admiring the flower arrangements when Cassandra appeared at her side. "Enjoying yourself?" the bride asked. "It's a beautiful event," Micah said diplomatically. "I'm surprised Kellen brought you," Cassandra said, sipping her champagne. "He doesn't usually share his toys." Micah blinked. "Excuse me?" "Oh, don't take offense. I just meant Kellen likes to keep his world separate. Business, pleasure, art. He compartmentalizes everything. She tilted her head, studying Micah. So which compartment are you in? I don't think Kellen sees people as compartments or toys, Micah said carefully. Cassandra laughed lightly. You don't know him very well, do you? He's all about control. It's why things didn't work between us. I needed passion, spontaneity. Kellen is, she waved her hand searching for the word, cold. That hasn't been my experience, Micah said, surprised to realize she meant it. Give it time. Cassandra's eyes drifted to where Kellen stood talking. He looks good though. I was worried after, well, everything. After you left him with a letter and ran off with his rival. Micah couldn't help asking. Cassandra's smile faltered. He told you about that? Yes. Did he tell you why? He said you wanted someone flashier. Cassandra sighed. It wasn't just that. Kellen never let me in. Not really. He was always holding something back. With Marcus, what you see is what you get. And that's better. It's easier. Cassandra glanced at her fiancé, who was laughing loudly with a group of men. Anyway, you seem nice. Just don't expect too much from Kellen. He'll never love anyone more than his precious gallery. With that, she glided away, leaving Micah unsettled. A moment later, Kellen returned to her side. What did Cassandra want? To mark her territory, Micah said, and maybe warn me about you. Kellen frowned. What did she say? That you're cold, that you compartmentalize people. Something flickered in his eyes, hurt maybe or resignation. And what do you think? Micah considered the question. I think people show different sides of themselves to different people. Maybe you were cold with her, or maybe she just couldn't see beyond the surface. Kellen looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he held out his hand. Dance with me? Surprised, Micah took his hand and followed him to the dance floor. The quartet was playing something slow and sweet. Kellen's hand settled on her waist, warm and steady, as he led her in a simple waltz. I didn't know you could dance, she said. There's a lot you don't know about me, he replied. Whose fault is that? His mouth quirked. Fair point. They moved together easily, finding a natural rhythm. Micah was aware of eyes on them, but found she didn't care. There was something comforting about being in Kellen's arms, something that made the rest of the room fade away. So, tell me something I don't know about you, she said. Kellen thought for a moment. I wanted to be a painter when I was younger, before I went into dealing art. Why didn't you? His expression clouded. My father said I had no talent, that I'd embarrass the family name if I tried to show my work. That's harsh. He was right. I wasn't good enough. Did you love it, though? The painting? Kellen nodded slowly. More than anything. Then you should have kept at it. Not everything is about being the best. In my family, it was. He spun her gently, changing the subject. What about you? How did you become a teacher and an artist? I always loved both. Art was my escape. Teaching was my calling. Kids don't judge art the way adults do. They just create for the joy of it. That sounds nice, Kellen said softly. Simple. It is. That's why I can't give up either one, even if it means being broke most of the time. The music ended and they stopped dancing, but Kellen didn't immediately step away. For a moment, they just looked at each other, something unspoken passing between them. Then Marcus's loud voice broke the spell. Having fun, Ward? Trying to remember what you lost? Kellen stiffened, dropping his hands from Micah's waist. We were just enjoying the music. Marcus slung an arm around Kellen's shoulders. No hard feelings, right? It's all water under the bridge now. Of course, Kellen said, his voice neutral. Good man. Marcus slapped him on the back. Because I wanted to tell you personally, we're using some of your pieces in the wedding tomorrow. Kellen frowned. My pieces? Those paintings you sold to the Wilson collection last year. I bought them. Thought they'd make a nice backdrop for the ceremony. Marcus grinned. Full circle, isn't it? You lose the girl, I get the girl, and even your art gets to witness it. Micah saw something break in Kellen's eyes, a flash of raw pain quickly masked. If you'll excuse us, he said stiffly. It's been a long day. Without waiting for a response, he took Micah's hand and led her away from the dance floor, through the crowd, and out of the hall. He didn't speak as they walked back to their suite, his strides long and tense. Micah had to hurry to keep up. Once inside, Kellen went straight to the bar in the kitchenette and poured himself a whiskey. Are you okay? Micah asked. Fine, he said shortly, downing the drink in one go. Those paintings must mean something to you. Kellen poured another drink. They were from a special collection, works by an emerging artist I believed in. I spent months convincing the Wilsons to buy them, and now Marcus owns them? Apparently, his laugh was bitter. He probably bought them just for this moment. Micah moved closer. Kellen, why did you really bring me here? And don't say it was to avoid coming alone. He looked at her, his eyes turbulent. I wanted to show them I'd moved on, that I wasn't broken by what they did. Are you? Broken? Kellen set down his glass. I don't know. The honesty in his voice tugged at something in Micah's chest. On impulse, she reached out and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. You don't seem broken to me, she said softly. Just hurt. There's a difference. For a moment he leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. Then he stepped back, putting distance between them. We should get some rest, he said. Tomorrow will be challenging. Micah nodded, letting her hand fall. Good night, Kellen. Good night, Micah. She went to her room and closed the door, but sleep was long in coming. She kept thinking about the flash of vulnerability she'd seen in Kellen's eyes and the way it had made her want to protect him. Which was ridiculous. He was a grown man, a millionaire who didn't need her protection, but there was something about him, something beneath the polished surface that called to her, and that was dangerous, because this wasn't real. It was a business arrangement, nothing more, wasn't it? Micah woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment, she was disoriented by the luxurious surroundings, then remembered where she was and why. The wedding was today. She found a note from Kellen on the kitchen counter. Gone for a walk. Breakfast on the terrace if you're hungry. Ceremony at 2 p.m. K. After a shower, Micah dressed in shorts and a t-shirt and went to find breakfast. The terrace overlooked the lake, the water glittering in the morning sun. A buffet was set up with everything from fresh fruit to made-to-order omelets. As she filled a plate, Micah noticed Cassandra sitting alone at a corner table, looking at something on her phone. On impulse, she walked over. Mind if I join you? Cassandra looked up, surprised. Please. Micah sat down. No Marcus this morning? Bachelor traditions. The men took him fishing. Cassandra set down her phone. I didn't expect to see you without Kellen. He went for a walk. Ah, his morning ritual. Some things never change. They ate in silence for a moment. Then Cassandra said, You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more polished. The women Kellen usually dates are like living accessories, beautiful, expensive, and silent. Micah raised an eyebrow. Was that what you were? Cassandra laughed. No, that was our problem. I was too loud, too demanding. I wanted more than he could give. Or maybe you wanted something different than what he could give, Micah suggested. Cassandra studied her. You're perceptive, and you seem to genuinely like him. I do. Why? The question caught Micah off guard. Why did she like Kellen? He was certainly attractive, and beneath his reserved exterior there was a thoughtfulness she admired. But there was something else too, a depth she'd only glimpsed, but wanted to explore. He's more than he appears to be, she said finally. Cassandra looked skeptical. Or maybe you just haven't seen the real him yet. Maybe you never did, Micah countered. Cassandra's eyes widened, then she laughed again. Touché. I like you, Micah. I hope Kellen doesn't mess this up. Before Micah could respond, Cassandra stood. I should go, bridal preparations and all that. Enjoy the wedding. As she walked away, Micah wondered which of them had the more accurate view of Kellen Ward. Back in the suite, Micah found Kellen returned from his walk. He was sitting on the balcony, a cup of coffee in hand, looking out at the lake. Good morning, she said, joining him. He glanced up. Morning? Did you sleep well? Well enough? You? Not really. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes. Micah resisted the urge to touch his face again, to smooth away the tension she saw there. I had breakfast with Cassandra, she said instead. Kellen's eyebrows rose. How was that? Interesting. She thinks I'm not your usual type. She's right. What is your usual type? Kellen shrugged. Since Cassandra, I haven't really had a type. Just distractions. The honesty surprised her. And what am I? A distraction? His eyes met hers. No, you're something else entirely. The way he said it made her heart beat faster. Micah looked away, suddenly uncomfortable with the direction of her thoughts. We should start getting ready soon, she said. The ceremony is at 2. Kellen nodded. I have a call first. Work emergency. On a Saturday, Art doesn't keep business hours. Micah left him to his call and went to prepare for the wedding. She took her time with her makeup, going for something more dramatic than her usual light touch. The emerald green dress fit perfectly, skimming her curves and falling to the floor in a silky cascade. When she emerged from her room, Kellen was waiting in the sitting area, dressed in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, handsome, sophisticated, untouchable. Then he saw her, and the mask slipped. His eyes widened, his lips parting slightly in surprise. "You look," he began, then stopped, seeming at a loss for words. Micah smiled, enjoying his reaction more than she should. "Thank you. You're not so bad yourself." Kellen crossed the room to her, something in his hand. "I got you something, to complete the outfit." He opened a small velvet box to reveal a pair of diamond earrings. Simple, but obviously expensive. "Kellen, I can't—" "They're just on loan," he said quickly. "From the jewelry designer who's showing at my gallery next month." "I thought they'd go with a dress." Micah hesitated, then took the earrings. "Thank you, they're beautiful." As she put them on, Kellen watched her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "Perfect," he said softly when she was done. "Shall we?" He offered his arm and Micah took it, feeling strangely like a princess being escorted to a ball. Except this was a fairy tale with a twist. She was the hired date, not the true love. And after tomorrow, the magic would end. The thought shouldn't have bothered her as much as it did. The wedding ceremony was held in the estate's gardens, with rows of white chairs facing an elaborate floral arch. Behind the arch, just as Marcus had promised, hung 3 large paintings, abstract works in blues and greys that Micah recognized as the pieces Kellen had mentioned. "Are those the paintings?" she whispered as they took their seats. Kellen nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, they're beautiful. They were created by a woman who lost her child," he said quietly. "Each one represents a stage of grief. They were never meant to be a backdrop for a celebration." Micah slipped her hand into his. "I'm sorry." He didn't pull away, instead entwining his fingers with hers as the music began, and the wedding party started down the aisle. Cassandra was a vision in white, her dress a cloud of lace and silk. As she passed their row, her eyes met Kellen's briefly, something unreadable passing between them. Throughout the ceremony, Kellen remained tense beside Micah, his hand gripping hers tightly. She stroked her thumb across his knuckles, a small gesture of comfort. When Marcus and Cassandra were pronounced husband and wife, Kellen finally released her hand. As applause erupted around them, he whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For being here, for making this bearable." The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache. In that moment, Micah realized she was in trouble, because somewhere between their first meeting and now, this had stopped being just a job. She was starting to care about Kellen Ward, really care, in a way that had nothing to do with money or arrangements, and that could only lead to heartbreak. The reception was held in a massive tent by the lake, decorated with thousands of fairy lights and more flowers. A live band played as guests mingled with cocktails before dinner. Kellen seemed more relaxed now that the ceremony was over. He kept Micah close, his hand often finding the small of her back or her elbow as he introduced her to more people from his world. To her surprise, she enjoyed these interactions. The art dealers and collectors were passionate about their work, and once they realized Micah knew what she was talking about, they engaged her in genuine conversations about techniques and trends. "You're a hit," Kellen murmured in her ear after one such discussion. "Eleanor just asked me for your contact information." "The collector from last night? I thought I offended her." "You impressed her. She wants to see your work." Micah's eyes widened. "Seriously?" Kellen nodded, a hint of pride in his smile. "I told you you're talented. You've never seen my work." "I'd like to," he said, his eyes serious. "When we get back to the city." Before Micah could respond, they were called to their table for dinner. The meal was as elaborate as the previous nights, but Micah barely tasted it. Her mind was too full of Kellen, the way he looked at her, the feel of his hand in hers, the warmth in his voice when he spoke about her art. After dinner, Marcus rose for another toast. He was already flushed with champagne, his voice louder than necessary. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our love," he began, "especially those who doubted we would make it." His gaze fixed pointedly on Kellen. "Some people thought Cassandra was making a mistake, leaving a sure thing for me. But as we all know, some sure things are actually dead ends." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Marcus continued, his smile sharp. "Kellen Ward is the perfect example of a dead end. All work, no passion, no risk. Is it any wonder Cassandra chose the road less traveled?" Micah felt anger building in her chest. Without thinking, she stood up, glass in hand. "I'd like to say something," she said clearly. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to her. Kellen looked up at her in surprise. "I'm Micah Rowe," she began. "Many of you don't know me, and that's okay. What you should know is that I've had the privilege of getting to know Kellen Ward these past months. She looked down at Kellen, whose expression was a mixture of confusion and wonder. What I've found is a man of quiet strength and genuine passion, someone who sees beauty where others don't, who fights for artists who deserve recognition. She lifted her glass. To Kellen, who has the courage to show up in front of people who never really saw him. Their loss, my gain. The room was completely silent for a beat, then scattered applause broke out. Micah sat down, her heart pounding. You didn't have to do that, Kellen whispered. Yes, I did, she replied. He was being cruel, and you didn't deserve it. Thank you. His voice was rough with emotion. For the rest of the evening, something had shifted between them. Kellen stayed close to her, his eyes frequently finding hers across the room. When they danced, he held her closer than before, his hand warm against her back. As the night wore on, the band began playing slower songs. Micah rested her head against Kellen's shoulder as they swayed together, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Can I ask you something? He said softly. Anything. Did you mean what you said? In your toast. Micah lifted her head to look at him. Every word. Kellen's eyes darkened. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, a question in them. Before she could answer, the band announced the last dance of the night. Couples crowded the floor around them, breaking the moment. It's getting late, Kellen said. Would you like to go back to the suite? Micah nodded, suddenly nervous about what might happen when they were alone. They walked through the gardens, following a path lit by small lanterns. The night was cool, stars bright overhead. Near a small fountain, Kellen stopped. Micah, he said, turning to face her, this weekend it hasn't been what I expected. No? He shook his head. I hired you to play a role, but you've been so much more than that. You've been real. You stood up for me when no one else would. Because I meant it, Micah said. You're not what Cassandra and Marcus think you are. What am I then? Someone worth knowing, really knowing. Kellen moved closer, his hand coming up to touch her face. I want to know you too, not as my hired date, as Micah. Her heart was racing now. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want this to end tomorrow. I want to see where this could go. You and me, for real. The words she'd been secretly hoping to hear, but something held her back. Is this because of what I said at the reception? Because I defended you? Kellen frowned. No, it's because of who you are, how you make me feel. And how is that? Alive, he said simply. You make me feel alive, Micah. For the first time in years. The sincerity in his voice broke through her defenses. Micah reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Kellen, he leaned down, his lips meeting hers in a gentle kiss. It was tentative at first, a question, then deeper as she responded. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. Wow, Micah whispered. Kellen smiled, a real, full smile that transformed his face. That wasn't part of our arrangement. No, it wasn't. Do you regret it? Micah shook her head. Not at all. He kissed her again, this time with more urgency, his hands tangling in her hair. Micah felt herself getting lost in him, in the warmth and solidness of his body against hers. A noise from nearby, other guests walking the path, brought them back to reality. We should go inside, Kellen said, his voice husky. Hand in hand, they returned to their suite. At the door, Kellen hesitated. Micah, I don't expect... That is, I know this is sudden. She smiled at his uncharacteristic awkwardness. Kellen, it's okay. Let's just take this one step at a time. Relief crossed his face. One step at a time, he agreed. Inside, they sat on the couch, talking late into the night. Kellen told her about his childhood in a cold, achievement-oriented family. Micah shared stories of her brother and her dreams for her art. They laughed and argued and found common ground in unexpected places. It was the most honest conversation Micah had ever had with a man, and when Kellen finally kissed her goodnight outside her bedroom door, she knew something fundamental had changed between them. This was no longer pretend. It had become very, very real. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Micah woke early, her mind immediately replaying the events of the previous night. Kellen's kiss, his confession, the way they had talked for hours. It felt like a dream, but the butterflies in her stomach told her it was real. She took her time getting ready for the day, choosing a simple yellow sundress for the farewell brunch. As she applied light makeup, she wondered what would happen when they returned to the city. Would Kellen still want to see her when they were back in their normal lives, or was this just the magic of the weekend? a bubble that would burst as soon as they left. When she emerged from her room, Kellen was waiting on the balcony with coffee. "Good morning," he said, his eyes warming as they took her in. "You look beautiful." "Thanks." Micah accepted the coffee cup he offered, their fingers brushing. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months." He smiled, and Micah noticed how different he looked from the stiff, guarded man who had picked her up just 2 days ago. There was a lightness to him now, a spark in his eyes. "About last night," she began, suddenly nervous. "No regrets?" Kellen asked, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "No regrets," she confirmed. "But I do have questions." "Such as? What happens when we go back to the city, to our real lives?" Kellen set down his coffee cup and took her free hand in his. "I meant what I said. I want to see where this could go, you and me, for real." "And what does for real look like to you?" He considered the question. "Dinners that aren't for show. Spending time together because we want to, not because we have an arrangement. Getting to know each other without an audience." "That sounds nice," Micah admitted. "But," she sighed, "but we're from different worlds, Kellen. You're a millionaire art dealer. I'm a preschool teacher who can barely make rent. Do those things matter to you?" "No, but they might matter to you eventually." Kellen's thumb traced circles on her palm. "Micah, what drew me to you from the start was that you didn't care about any of that. You saw me, not my bank account or my gallery or my connections." "And what do you see when you look at me?" His eyes held hers. "I see someone real, brave, talented, someone who challenges me and makes me laugh and doesn't let me hide behind my walls." The sincerity in his voice made her heart skip. On impulse, she leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sweet. "One day at a time," she suggested when they pulled apart. Kellen smiled. "One day at a time." The farewell brunch was held on the lawn overlooking the lake. Tables covered in white linen were scattered across the grass, laden with food and flowers. The mood was relaxed after the formality of the wedding, guests in casual clothes chatting and laughing in the morning sun. Kellen and Micah walked hand in hand toward the gathering. A few heads turned their way, and Micah noticed the curious glances, the whispered comments. After her toast last night, they had become the subject of interest. "Everyone's looking at us," she murmured. "Let them," Kellen said, squeezing her hand. "I'm proud to be with you." They filled plates with food and found a table slightly removed from the main crowd. As they ate, Micah spotted Cassandra making her way around the lawn, the perfect hostess in a flowing white sundress. When she reached their table, she was alone. Marcus, nowhere in sight. "Good morning," Cassandra said, her smile surprisingly genuine. "I hope you both enjoyed the wedding." "It was beautiful," Micah said. "Congratulations again." "Thank you." Cassandra's eyes moved between them, noting their clasped hands on the table. "I see things have developed since we last talked." Kellen's expression remained neutral. "They have." "I'm glad," Cassandra said, and to Micah's surprise, she seemed sincere. "You deserve to be happy, Kellen. Both of you do." Before either could respond, a commotion across the lawn caught their attention. Marcus was there, his voice raised in argument with someone from the catering staff. Cassandra sighed. "I should go handle that. Safe travels back to the city." As she walked away, Micah turned to Kellen. "That was unexpected." "Yes, it was." He looked thoughtful. "Maybe she really has changed. Or maybe she sees what she lost," Micah suggested. Kellen shook his head. "We weren't right for each other. I see that now." "What made you realize that?" "Meeting you," he said simply. The rest of the brunch passed pleasantly. Several people came by their table to chat, including Eleanor, the collector who had expressed interest in Micah's work. "I'd love to see your portfolio when you have time," Eleanor said. "Kellen has a good eye for talent, and if he sees something in you, I'm intrigued." "Thank you," Micah said, feeling a flutter of excitement. "I'd be honored." When Eleanor left, Micah turned to Kellen. "Did you say something to her about my art?" "I might have mentioned you were looking for gallery representation," he admitted, "but only because I believe in your work." "You still haven't seen it," she reminded him. "I will," he promised. "Soon." As the brunch wound down, they returned to their suite to pack. The weekend was ending, and it was time to return to reality. In the car on the way back to the city, Micah found herself growing quiet, lost in thought. The countryside flew by outside the window, green and peaceful. "What are you thinking about?" Kellen asked, his hand finding hers on the seat between them. "How strange life is," she said. 3 days ago, this was just a job. Now?" She looked at him. "Now I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not a job." Kellen brought her hand to his lips. "It's a beginning." The city welcomed them back with its familiar noise and energy. As the car pulled up in front of Micah's apartment building, reality began to set in. This was her world, the small walk-up in a modest neighborhood far from Kellen's penthouse and gallery. "Would you like to come up?" she asked as the driver unloaded her suitcase. "It's not much, but I'd love to," Kellen said. He instructed the driver to wait, then followed her up the narrow stairs to the third floor. Micah felt suddenly self-conscious as she unlocked her door. Her apartment was clean but small, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in her own artwork and prints from favorite artists. "It's a bit cramped compared to what you're used to," she said as they entered. Kellen looked around with genuine interest. "It's wonderful. It feels like you." His eyes moved to the paintings on the walls, vibrant, abstract pieces full of color and movement. "Are these yours?" he asked, moving closer to examine one. Micah nodded. "Most of them. The prints are artists I admire." Kellen studied a large canvas above her sofa, an abstract cityscape in blues and golds, with streaks of red cutting through the urban landscape. "This is incredible," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "The composition, the color harmony, the emotional impact. Micah, you're talented. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to be nice, I'm saying it as someone who's built a career on recognizing artistic talent." He turned to her. "Why haven't you shown these?" Micah shrugged. "I've tried, but without connections it's hard to get into good galleries, and the teaching job takes up most of my time. You should be showing. These deserve to be seen. Maybe someday." "No," Kellen said firmly. "Not someday. Soon." He pulled out his phone. "In fact, I have an opening in my gallery's schedule next month. A young photographer had to postpone his show." Micah's eyes widened. "Kellen, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." He looked up from his phone. "Unless you don't want to show at my gallery." "It's not that, it's just—" She hesitated. "I don't want special treatment because we're whatever we are." Kellen put his phone away and took her hands. "Micah, listen to me. I would offer this opportunity to any artist with your talent. Yes, our personal connection is what led me to see your work, but the offer is based solely on the quality of what I'm seeing." She wanted to believe him. "You really think they're good enough?" "I know they are, but this has to be your decision. No pressure." Micah looked around at her paintings, pieces of her heart and soul displayed on canvas. The thought of sharing them with the world was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course." Kellen smiled. "Take all the time you need." The tension broken, they settled on her small couch. Jade was away visiting family, so they had the apartment to themselves. They talked for hours, making plans to see each other during the week, discussing favorite books and films, learning the small details that made up each other's lives. When Kellen finally had to leave, he kissed her at the door, long and sweet. "I'll call you tomorrow," he promised. "I'll be waiting," Micah replied, watching him go with a mixture of happiness and disbelief. How had a fake date turned into something so real? The next morning, Micah returned to her preschool classroom, greeted by the excited shouts of 24-year-olds who had missed their teacher. She lost herself in their energy, in the joy of helping them create colorful handprints and teaching them new words. During nap time, she checked her phone to find a text from Kellen. "Thinking of you, dinner tonight." The simple message made her smile. "Yes," she texted back. "Where?" "Your choice. Anywhere you want." Micah thought for a moment, then replied, "How about my place? I'll cook." "Perfect, 7 p.m. See you then." That evening, Micah prepared a simple dinner, pasta with homemade sauce, a salad, and fresh bread. Nothing fancy, but made with care. She changed into jeans and a soft blue sweater, leaving her hair loose the way Kellen seemed to like it. At exactly 7, there was a knock at her door. Kellen stood there with a bouquet of wildflowers and a bottle of wine. "Hi," he said, his eyes taking her in. "Hi yourself," she replied, accepting the flowers. "Come in." Kellen seemed more relaxed in her small apartment than he had at the wedding. He moved around her kitchen, helping her finish dinner, asking questions about the pictures on her refrigerator, the books on her shelves. It felt comfortable, natural, as if they'd known each other for years instead of days. Over dinner, he told her about his day, a difficult client, a promising new artist he'd discovered, plans for an upcoming exhibition. "I've been thinking about your work all day," he said as they finished eating, "about how to best showcase it. The lighting, the arrangement, the theme." Micah set down her wine glass. "You're really serious about this, aren't you?" "Completely, but only if you want it." She took a deep breath. "I do. I want to show at your gallery." Kellen's face lit up. "Really?" "Yes. but I have conditions. Name them. I want honest feedback, not special treatment. If something isn't working, tell me, and I want to be involved in every step of the process. Done. And, Micah added, I want to keep teaching. At least for now, the kids are important to me. Kellen reached across the table for her hand. I would never ask you to give that up. It's part of who you are. After dinner, they moved to the couch, sitting close together. Kellen's arm around her shoulders felt right, like it belonged there. Tell me about your family, Micah said, nestling against him. You've mentioned your father, but not your mother. Kellen was quiet for a moment. My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. After that, it was just my father and me, and he changed. Became harder, more distant. I'm sorry. He had high expectations. The ward name meant everything to him. Success, prestige, perfection. When I showed interest in painting, he said it was a waste of time unless I could be the best. And when it became clear I wasn't going to be a great artist, he pushed me toward dealing instead. That must have been difficult. Kellen nodded. I learned to bury my emotions, to focus on what I could control. By the time I met Cassandra, I was exactly what my father wanted. Successful, disciplined, emotionless. But that's not who you really are, Micah said softly. No, but I'd forgotten that until I met you. He kissed her then, and Micah felt herself melting into him. This wasn't like their kisses at the wedding, careful, tentative. This was deeper, more urgent, his hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. When they finally came up for air, Micah was breathless. Kellen, I should go, he said, his voice rough. Before I don't want to. What if I don't want you to go? He searched her face. Are you sure? In answer, Micah stood and took his hand, leading him toward her bedroom. The look in his eyes, desire mixed with tenderness, made her heart race. That night, in her small bed with the moonlight filtering through the blinds, they discovered each other slowly, carefully. Kellen was gentle but passionate, his hands and lips learning her body as if memorizing a masterpiece. And when they finally came together, Micah felt something break open inside her. A space she hadn't known was empty, now suddenly filled. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Kellen's heartbeat strong beneath her cheek. Stay, she whispered. He tightened his arms around her. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of happiness. By day, Micah taught her preschoolers and prepared for her upcoming show. By night, she and Kellen explored their growing relationship. Sometimes they went out, to small restaurants Micah loved, to gallery openings where Kellen introduced her as the artist I've been telling you about, to concerts in the park where they sat on blankets and held hands like teenagers. Other times they stayed in, at her apartment cooking simple meals, or at his penthouse where Kellen taught her about wine and showed her his private art collection. They discovered shared tastes in books and music, argued good-naturedly about films, and slowly revealed their histories to each other. Kellen was true to his word about the preschool. One Tuesday morning, a truck arrived with 5 beautiful paintings for the classroom, bright, engaging pieces that the children immediately loved. Mr. Kellen is your boyfriend? Asked Emma, a precocious 4-year-old, when Kellen came to help hang the paintings. Yes, he is, Micah replied, surprised at how natural the words felt. Is he going to be your husband? Emma persisted. Kellen, overhearing, nearly dropped the painting he was holding. Their eyes met over Emma's head, both of them suddenly flustered. We're just dating right now, Emma, Micah explained, her cheeks warm. My mommy says when grown-ups love each other, they get married, Emma declared with the absolute certainty of a 4-year-old. Sometimes they do, Micah agreed, but it takes time to know if you love someone enough to marry them. Do you love Mr. Kellen? Emma asked. The question hung in the air. Micah and Kellen had been careful not to use that word yet, though it hovered at the edges of their conversations, in their touches, in the way they looked at each other. Emma, that's a grown-up question, Micah said gently. Why don't you go help Ms. Jade with the story circle? As Emma skipped away, Kellen set down the painting. Kids say the darndest things, he said, trying for lightness. They have no filters, Micah agreed, equally uncomfortable. They finished hanging the paintings in silence, the unanswered question lingering between them. That night at Kellen's penthouse, the tension from the morning had dissipated. They ate dinner on his balcony, watching the city lights come alive as the sun set. The gallery space is ready, Kellen said. We can start hanging your work next week if you're ready. I think so, Micah replied. I've selected 15 pieces that work together thematically, though I'm still nervous about putting myself out there like this. You're going to be a sensation, Kellen assured her. I've already had several collectors express interest based solely on my description of your work. You've been talking me up, haven't you? Just stating facts. Your talent speaks for itself. Micah took a sip of wine. And what about us? Are people talking about that too? Kellen hesitated. Some. There are always gossips in the art world. What are they saying? That I've changed? That I smile more? That I must be serious about you because I've never given an unknown artist a solo show before. He reached for her hand. Does it bother you? Micah thought about it. No, but I do wonder what they'll say if the show isn't successful. It will be. But if it isn't, she pressed, will they think I got the opportunity because of us? Kellen's face grew serious. Micah, your work deserves to be seen regardless of our relationship. But if you're having doubts... I'm not, she interrupted. I want this. I just want to make sure we're both prepared for any outcome. We are. He squeezed her hand. Together. Later, as they lay in Kellen's massive bed, Micah found herself thinking about Emma's question. Did she love Kellen? They had only known each other for a few weeks, but it felt like so much longer. He had seen her, really seen her, in a way no one else ever had. And she had seen him, the real man beneath the polished exterior. Was that love? She looked at him sleeping beside her, his face relaxed and younger looking in repose. A wave of tenderness washed over her, so strong it nearly took her breath away. Yes, she realized. She was falling in love with Kellen Ward, and it terrified her. The night of Micah's gallery opening arrived with a flurry of last-minute preparations. The show, titled Urban Rhythms, featured 15 of her paintings arranged throughout the main space of Ward Gallery. Spotlights highlighted each piece, and small cards with titles and prices, which had made Micah gasp when Kellen suggested them, were placed beside each work. Kellen had been meticulous about every detail, from the lighting to the wine selection to the guest list. Now, an hour before the doors were set to open, he found Micah in the back office, sitting quietly with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Nervous, he asked, sitting beside her. Terrified, she admitted. What if no one likes them? What if everyone thinks I'm only here because of you? First of all, everyone will love them. Second, who cares why you're here? Your work speaks for itself. He took her hands in his. Micah, you're brilliant. Tonight is just the world finally getting to see what I already know. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Thank you for believing in me. Always. He kissed the top of her head. Now, let's get you ready to meet your public. The gallery began to fill promptly at 7. Micah, wearing a simple black dress that Kellen had helped her choose, stood beside him greeting guests as they arrived. Art critics, collectors, fellow gallery owners, and friends from both their lives mixed and mingled, glasses of champagne in hand. Jade had come early to support her friend and was now chatting animatedly with Eleanor about one of Micah's larger pieces. People are responding to your work, Kellen murmured in Micah's ear. Look around. He was right. Guests were gathering in front of her paintings, discussing them with genuine interest. Several had the red dots that indicated a sale already placed beside them. I can't believe this is happening, Micah whispered. Believe it, Kellen said, squeezing her hand. You earned this. As the evening progressed, Micah found herself drawn into conversations about her techniques, her inspirations, her vision. To her surprise, no one questioned her presence in the prestigious gallery. They engaged with her as an artist in her own right, not as Kellen's girlfriend. Near the end of the night, as the crowd began to thin, Kellen clinked a spoon against his glass to get everyone's attention. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate the extraordinary talent of Micah Rowe, he said, his voice carrying through the gallery. As many of you know, I've built my career on finding exceptional artists who have something unique to say. In Micah, I've found not only a brilliant painter, but someone who sees the world with uncommon clarity and compassion. He turned to her, his eyes warm. Her work reminds us that beauty can be found in unexpected places, that emotion is the truest form of expression, and that sometimes the most powerful statements are made with color and light rather than words. Micah felt tears threatening as Kellen continued. I'm proud to host her first solo exhibition, and I'm even prouder to know her. Please join me in a toast to Micah Rowe and her bright future in the art world. Glasses were raised, and applause filled the room. As people drank to her success, Kellen pulled Micah slightly aside. There's something else I want to say, he said quietly, just for her. Something I've been feeling for weeks, but haven't had the courage to put into words. Micah's heart raced. What is it? I love you, Micah Rowe. His voice was steady, his eyes never leaving hers. I know it's fast, and I know we come from different worlds, but I love you. You've changed everything for me. How I see myself, how I see the world, what I want from life. Micah felt her breath catch. Kellen, you don't have to say it back, he rushed on. I just needed you to know. Tonight, seeing you shine, watching everyone else discover what I already knew about you, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Micah reached up to touch his face, tears now flowing freely. I love you too, she whispered. I have for weeks. I was just afraid to say it first. Kellen's smile was radiant as he pulled her into his arms, oblivious to the remaining guests around them. When he kissed her, Micah felt like she was floating. Excuse me, a voice interrupted. They broke apart to find a distinguished older man watching them with amusement. I don't mean to intrude on this moment, but I wanted to speak with Ms. Rowe before I left. Of course, Micah said, wiping her eyes and trying to compose herself. Ms. Rowe, I'm Thomas Blackwood, the man said, extending his hand. Micah's eyes widened. Thomas Blackwood was one of the most prestigious collectors in the country. His private collection rivaled many museums. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Blackwood, she said, shaking his hand. The honor is mine. Your work is extraordinary, fresh, emotional, technically accomplished. I've purchased 3 pieces tonight, but I'd like to commission a larger work for my home in Connecticut, if you're interested. Micah felt lightheaded. Yes, I'd be very interested. Excellent. My assistant will contact you next week to discuss details. He smiled at them both. Kellen, you've outdone yourself finding Ms. Rowe. Hold on to this one. She's special. I intend to, Kellen said, his arm tightening around Micah's waist. After Blackwood left, Micah turned to Kellen in disbelief. Did that just happen? It did. Kellen kissed her again. And it's just the beginning. By the end of the night, 12 of Micah's 15 paintings had sold, and she had received 2 additional commission requests. As the last guests departed, Kellen locked the gallery doors and pulled her into his arms. How does it feel to be a successful artist? He asked, spinning her around. Micah laughed. Incredible, unbelievable, like a dream. It's not a dream. He set her down but kept his arms around her. It's real. You're real. We're real. We are, aren't we? She looked up at him, suddenly serious. Kellen, when I agreed to be your +1, I never imagined this would happen. Neither did I. He brushed a curl from her face. But I'm so glad it did. Me too. They stood surrounded by her art, by the physical manifestation of her dreams, and Micah felt a completeness she had never known before. She had her teaching, her art, and now Kellen, not the cold, distant man she had first met, but the warm, passionate man he truly was. Let's go home, Kellen said softly. Who's home? Micah asked. They had been dividing their time between his penthouse and her apartment, neither place fully belonging to both of them. Kellen's eyes held hers. Wherever you are is home to me now. The words wrapped around Micah's heart like a promise. Then let's go home together. Hand in hand, they left the gallery, stepping into the night and toward whatever future awaited them. Together. 3 months after Micah's gallery opening, her life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. Her paintings were now featured in several private collections. She had completed 2 commissions, and art magazines had begun to mention her name as a promising new talent to watch. Yet despite her growing success, she had insisted on keeping her teaching job. 3 mornings a week, she still went to her preschool classroom, helping little hands with finger paints and reading stories during circle time. The children's uninhibited creativity continued to inspire her own work. Her relationship with Kellen had deepened into something neither of them had expected. They spent most nights together, either at his penthouse or her apartment, though the contrast between the 2 places sometimes highlighted the differences in their backgrounds that still existed. On a crisp fall morning, Micah woke in Kellen's bed to find him already up, sitting at the desk in the corner of the bedroom with papers spread out before him. He wore only pajama bottoms, his dark hair slightly rumpled, a look of concentration on his face. Good morning, she said, stretching. You're up early. Kellen looked up, his serious expression melting into a smile. Morning, beautiful. I didn't want to wake you. What are you working on? Just some gallery business. He gathered the papers quickly, slipping them into a folder. How did you sleep? Like a rock. Micah got up and padded across to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders from behind. Though I missed you when I reached out and you weren't there. Kellen pulled her around and onto his lap. I've been thinking about something. Oh? She ran her fingers through his hair. Something serious, from the look on your face. Actually, yes. He took a deep breath. Micah, we've been together for almost 4 months now. "The best 4 months of my life," she said, kissing him lightly. "Mine too." His arms tightened around her waist. "Which is why I want to ask you something." "Ask away. Move in with me." Micah blinked, surprised. "Here? To the penthouse?" Kellen nodded. "I want to wake up with you every morning, not just most mornings. I want your paintings on these walls, your books on my shelves, your voice filling these rooms." The request was sincere, his eyes earnest as they searched her face. Micah felt a flutter of both excitement and uncertainty. "It's a big step," she said carefully. "I know, but I love you and I think we're ready." Micah looked around the spacious bedroom, taking in the expensive furniture, the perfect decor, the stunning view of the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was beautiful, but it had always felt like Kellen's space, not hers. "Can I think about it?" she asked. A flicker of disappointment crossed his face, but he nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need." She leaned in to kiss him properly. "It's not a no. I just need to be sure it's right for both of us." "I understand." Later that day, Micah met Jade for lunch at their favorite cafe. After they ordered, she shared Kellen's proposal. "He asked you to move in with him," Jade repeated. "That's huge." "I know." Micah stirred her iced tea absently. "And part of me wants to say yes immediately. But his place is so perfect and expensive, and not me," she sighed. "I love Kellen, but I'm not sure I belong in that world." Jade studied her friend. "Have you told him that?" "Not exactly. I said I needed to think about it." "And what did he say?" "That he understands." But I could tell he was disappointed. Their food arrived and they ate in thoughtful silence for a moment. "You know," Jade said finally, "you don't have to move into his place exactly as it is. You could make it yours too. Add your colors, your style. Kellen would probably love that." "Maybe." Micah picked at her salad. "But there's something else bothering me. Something I can't quite put my finger on." "Like what?" "Like, I've been so caught up in this whirlwind romance and my sudden art success that I haven't had time to process it all. What if I'm losing myself in Kellen's world?" Jade reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "That doesn't sound like you. You've always known who you are." "I thought I did, but everything's changed so quickly." "Not everything," Jade pointed out. "You kept teaching. You're still painting what you want to paint, not what sells. You still wear mismatched socks and sing in the shower." Micah smiled. "True. Look, all I'm saying is, don't let fear make this decision for you. If you love Kellen and want to build a life with him, then find a way to do it on terms that work for both of you." Micah considered her friend's advice. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You've just been too busy falling in love to notice." They both laughed, and the tension eased. By the time lunch was over, Micah had a clearer idea of what she wanted to do. That evening, she went to her apartment instead of Kellen's. She needed space to think, to make sure her decision was coming from the right place. She spent hours painting, losing herself in color and texture, letting her emotions flow onto the canvas. Around midnight, her phone rang. It was Kellen. "Hey," she answered, setting down her brush. "Hey yourself," he replied, his voice warm. "I missed you tonight." "I missed you too. I just needed some time to paint and think." "About my question from this morning?" "Yes." There was a pause. Then Kellen asked, "And have you reached any conclusions?" Micah took a deep breath. "I have, but I'd rather talk about it in person. Can you come over?" "Now, if it's not too late. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to his word, Kellen arrived at her door exactly 20 minutes later. He looked tired but alert, concern in his eyes as she let him in. "Is everything okay?" he asked, searching her face. "Yes." She led him to the couch. "I've been thinking about your offer to move in together." Kellen sat beside her, taking her hands in his. "And I want to, but not to your penthouse." His brow furrowed. "I don't understand." "I think we should find a new place together," Micah explained. "Somewhere that's ours from the beginning. Not yours that I'm moving into or mine that you're squeezing into." "A new place," Kellen repeated slowly. "Yes, something that reflects both of us. Your elegance and my chaos. Your order and my color." She squeezed his hands. "I want us to build something new, Kellen. A home that's truly ours." He was quiet for a long moment, and Micah felt a spike of anxiety. Had she offended him? Was he upset that she didn't want to move into his perfect penthouse? Then, to her surprise, he smiled. A full, genuine smile that lit up his eyes. "I think that's the best idea I've ever heard." "Really? Really?" He pulled her into his arms. "To be honest, I've never felt like the penthouse was truly home. It was just a place I lived, a symbol of success. The idea of creating a real home with you, I love it." Relief and happiness washed through Micah. So we're really doing this? Moving in together? Absolutely. Kellen kissed her softly. We'll start looking for places tomorrow. Not too expensive, Micah warned. I want to contribute my fair share. We'll figure out the details, Kellen promised. What matters is that we'll be together. As he held her close, Micah felt the rightness of their decision. They were creating something new together. Not his life or her life, but their life. The search for their new home took several weeks. They looked at dozens of places, from sleek downtown lofts to brownstones in quieter neighborhoods. Nothing felt quite right until they visited a spacious apartment in an old converted factory building. The moment they walked in, Micah knew. High ceilings with exposed beams, huge windows that filled the space with light, brick walls that told stories of the building's past. It was perfect. The open floor plan would allow for both living and studio space, and the second bedroom could serve as Kellen's home office. This is it, she said, turning to Kellen with shining eyes. This feels like us. He nodded, already seeing the possibilities. I can picture your paintings on these walls, your easel by that window, and your desk there, your books along that wall. They made an offer that day, and to their delight, it was accepted. The next month was a whirlwind of packing, sorting and deciding what to keep from each of their separate lives and what to let go. Kellen surprised Micah by being willing to part with much of his sleek modern furniture in favor of pieces they chose together. They kept her comfortable old couch but paired it with his elegant coffee table. His expensive sound system found a home next to her eclectic record collection. Moving day arrived on a cold December morning. Friends helped carry boxes and arrange furniture, filling the new space with laughter and good-natured teasing. I never thought I'd see the day when Kellen Ward would own mismatched dining chairs, remarked James, one of Kellen's gallery associates, as they set up the kitchen. They're not mismatched, Kellen corrected with a smile. They're deliberately eclectic. Micah taught me that. By evening, most of the essentials were in place. After their friends left, Micah and Kellen collapsed on their couch, surveying their new home. It's a mess, Micah laughed, looking at the half-unpacked boxes and disorganized shelves. It's perfect, Kellen countered, pulling her close. Because it's ours. They ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the floor, planning where paintings would hang and which corner would be best for the Christmas tree they would soon buy. It was their first holiday season together, and Micah was determined to make it special. Later, as they lay in bed for the first time in their new home, Micah curled against Kellen's side, marveling at how far they had come in just a few months. If someone had told me last summer that a fake date would lead to this, she murmured, I would have thought they were crazy. Kellen stroked her hair. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never planned for. 2 weeks before Christmas, Kellen hosted the gallery's annual holiday party. It was a major event in the art world calendar, bringing together artists, collectors, critics, and friends for an evening of celebration. This year, the party held special significance for Micah. Not only was she attending as Kellen's partner, but her work was prominently displayed in the gallery's winter showcase. 3 of her new paintings hung in the main space, commanding attention with their bold colors and emotional depth. She wore a red dress for the occasion, a vintage find that Kellen had admired when they were shopping together. Her hair was swept up, with a few curls framing her face. You look stunning, Kellen said as they arrived at the gallery together. Every man here will be jealous of me tonight, and every woman will wonder what you see in me, Micah joked. Kellen's face grew serious. They'll see exactly what I see, the most brilliant, beautiful, authentic woman in the room. The party was in full swing, the gallery transformed with tasteful holiday decorations and soft lighting. A jazz quartet played in one corner, and waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. As Kellen's partner, Micah found herself playing hostess, greeting guests and making introductions. To her surprise, she enjoyed the role. These people were no longer intimidating strangers from another world. Many had become friends over the past months. Eleanor, the collector who had first expressed interest in Micah's work, approached with a warm smile. Micah, darling, those new pieces are extraordinary. The commission you did for my summer home has received more compliments than anything else I own. That means so much coming from you, Micah replied, genuinely touched. And you and Kellen seem to be flourishing, Eleanor added, glancing across the room to where Kellen was deep in conversation with a museum curator. I haven't seen him this happy in all the years I've known him. He makes me happy too, Micah said simply. It shows in your work. There's a confidence there, a joy that wasn't quite as evident before. As the evening progressed, Micah noticed Kellen growing increasingly distracted. He kept checking his watch and scanning the room, as if looking for someone. "Is everything okay?" she asked when they had a moment alone. "You seem nervous." "Just making sure everything's perfect," he assured her. "This is an important night." "Because of the holiday party?" "Among other things." He kissed her cheek. "I need to check on something. I'll be right back." Before she could question him further, he disappeared into his office. Micah mingled with the guests, trying not to worry about Kellen's odd behavior. A few minutes later, the music stopped, and Kellen appeared at her side. He took her hand and led her to the center of the room, where a small space had cleared. The guests gathered around, watching with curious eyes. "Kellen, what's going on?" Micah whispered, suddenly self-conscious. Instead of answering, Kellen turned to address the room. "Friends, thank you all for coming tonight. This holiday season is special for many reasons, but particularly because it marks a new chapter in my life." He turned back to Micah, taking both her hands in his. 6 months ago, I asked Micah to be my +1 to a wedding. It was supposed to be a simple arrangement, a weekend, nothing more. But sometimes life surprises us with exactly what we need when we least expect it. Micah's heart began to race as she realized what was happening. "Micah Rowe," Kellen continued, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "you walked into my carefully controlled life and turned it upside down in the most beautiful way. You showed me what it means to live authentically, to create boldly, to love completely." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The room collectively held its breath as he dropped to one knee. "I promised myself I wouldn't do this at the gallery," he said with a smile, "but I couldn't think of a more fitting place. This is where your career was born, where our worlds fully merged, and I want everyone we care about to witness this moment." He opened the box to reveal a ring, a stunning emerald surrounded by small diamonds set in platinum. "Micah, will you be my +1 for the rest of our lives? Will you marry me?" Time seemed to stop. In that frozen moment, Micah saw their journey, from that first meeting in the cafe to the wedding weekend, from her gallery opening to their new home. She saw the man Kellen had been and the man he had become. She saw their future, bright with possibility. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and certain. "Yes, I will marry you." The room erupted in applause as Kellen slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her. Micah was vaguely aware of camera flashes and congratulations, but all she could focus on was Kellen, his smile, his eyes, the love radiating from him. "I hope you don't mind the public proposal," he whispered in her ear. "I wanted everyone to know how much you mean to me." "It was perfect," she assured him, looking down at the ring. "But how did you know emerald was my favorite?" "The dress you wore to the wedding. You said it was your favorite color." The fact that he had remembered such a small detail made her love him even more. "I can't believe this is happening." "Believe it," Kellen said, brushing a tear from her cheek. "This is just the beginning." The rest of the evening passed in a happy blur. Friends offered congratulations, glasses were raised in toasts, and plans for the future were eagerly discussed. Through it all, Kellen kept Micah close, his eyes rarely leaving her face. When the last guests had departed and they were alone in the gallery, Micah turned to her fiancé. "Did you plan this all along, even back when you first hired me?" Kellen laughed. "Not quite, but I think I started falling for you that very first day, when you told off that businessman in the cafe." "Really, that early?" "There was something about you, a fire, an authenticity. You were so different from anyone I'd ever known." Micah wrapped her arms around his neck. "And when did you know you wanted to marry me?" "The night of your opening, when I told you I loved you. I knew then that I never wanted to let you go." He kissed her softly. "What about you? When did you know?" "When we were looking for our apartment, watching you get excited about building a home with me, seeing you willing to change, to compromise. That's when I knew this was forever." They stood together in the quiet gallery, surrounded by art and memories, the promise of their future stretching before them. "Let's go home," Kellen said, taking her hand. Home. The word had new meaning now, not his place or her place, but their place, their life, their love. Spring arrived with gentle warmth and the sweet scent of flowers. On a perfect May afternoon, Micah stood in a small room at the art museum, looking at herself in a full-length mirror. Her wedding dress was simple but elegant, an off-white gown with delicate lace detailing that flowed to the floor. "You look beautiful," Jade said, adjusting the small white flowers in Micah's hair. As maid of honor, she wore a soft blue dress that complemented Micah's bouquet of wildflowers. "I can't believe this is happening," Micah said, her voice tinged with wonder. "A year ago, I was struggling to pay rent and wondering if my paintings would ever be seen by anyone. And now you're marrying a millionaire art dealer and have paintings in major collections," Jade finished with a smile. "It's like a fairy tale. Except it's real." Micah touched the emerald ring on her finger. "Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up." A knock at the door interrupted them. Micah's brother, David, who had flown in from Chicago to walk her down the aisle, peeked in. "It's time, sis," he said with a grin. "Your groom is getting anxious out there." Micah took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm ready." The ceremony was being held in the museum's sculpture garden, where marble statues stood among flowering trees and carefully tended pathways. It was a small wedding, with only close friends and family in attendance. Kellen and Micah had both wanted intimacy, rather than spectacle. As the music began, Micah took her brother's arm. "Don't let me trip," she whispered. "Never," he promised, patting her hand. They walked slowly down the petal-strewn path toward the small gathering. At the end stood Kellen, handsome in a light grey suit, his eyes fixed on Micah with such love that she felt her heart might burst. When she reached him, David placed her hand in Kellen's. "Take care of my sister," he said quietly. "With everything I am," Kellen promised. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises of love and support, of partnership and growth. When Kellen slipped the wedding band onto Micah's finger to join her engagement ring, his hands trembled slightly. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared. "You may kiss the bride." Kellen cupped Micah's face in his hands and kissed her tenderly to the applause and cheers of their guests. When they broke apart, both were smiling through tears. "Mrs. Ward," Kellen whispered. "Actually," Micah corrected with a smile, "it's going to be Roe Ward. So I'm keeping my name professionally." Kellen grinned. "Of course you are, and I wouldn't have it any other way." The reception was held in the museum's atrium, where tables were set among displays of ancient artifacts and modern sculptures. Kellen and Micah had chosen the venue not only for its beauty, but because it represented their shared love of art, the foundation upon which their relationship had been built. After dinner, as the dancing began, Kellen led Micah to the center of the floor for their first dance as husband and wife. "Happy?" he asked as they swayed to the music. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied. "And you?" "I have everything I never knew I needed." He pulled her closer. "Do you remember what you said when I first offered you the job of being my plus one?" Micah smiled at the memory. "I'm not a prop, and I won't fake affection. And look at us now," Kellen said softly. "Nothing fake about this. Nothing at all." As they danced, surrounded by the people they loved, Micah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a chance meeting in a cafe, to a fake date that became real, from two separate lives to one shared future. It had been an unexpected path, but the right one. Later that night, as they prepared to leave for their honeymoon in Italy, Kellen pulled Micah aside for a quiet moment together. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small, wrapped package. Curious, Micah opened it to find a beautiful leather-bound sketchbook. Inside, on the first page, Kellen had written, "For all our adventures to come, I can't wait to see what you create next." Touched by the thoughtful gift, Micah reached up to kiss him. "Thank you. Not just for this, but for believing in me from the beginning." "Always," Kellen promised, "from plus one to forever." As they walked hand in hand toward the waiting car, surrounded by the well wishes of friends and family, Micah knew that this was just the beginning of their story. Whatever the future held, challenges, joys, growth, change, they would face it together. Two people who had found in each other exactly what they needed. From strangers to lovers, from a business arrangement to a marriage, from plus one to forever. The end.